Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Senior News Editor with Retail Insider. Thanks for joining us today, Dan Kelly, who is President and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business.
Good to be with you.
So let's talk about the state of affairs of the small business industry here in Canada these days. Obviously, we've gone through some very tough times in 2.5 years. Where are we at right now for small businesses?
Well, look, I sure would like to say that we're much further ahead than we were a couple of years ago. And on some levels, that's absolutely the case. But my goodness, businesses are still in some pretty rough shape across Canada. Our most recent take from the Small Business Everyday Dashboard that we compile at CFIB shows that fewer than half of small businesses across Canada are back to normal levels of sales from the pandemic. We've been waiting for this to budge. We've been hoping that we would break at least the 50% mark, given that we're more than 2 years out, but that has not yet happened. On top of the fact that fewer than half of businesses are back to normal sales, all businesses are facing massive increases in their costs. All businesses are facing these days are facing a gripping shortage of labor. And many are dealing with the legacy of COVID-related debt. We have about $160,000 on average in COVID debt that businesses are now having to start to repay, some of it in the form of a CEBA loan, but others have taken on debt through their bank or borrowed from friends or family, or perhaps remortgaged their home. So the COVID effect is still very much, the economic effect is still lingering, even when the health effects of COVID seem to be a bit more modest.
Well, let me drill down a little bit more on the sales part of things. So,
yeah,
this is, I guess, what I don't understand, and maybe you could explain it. So, why are we still there at that level where the sales haven't moved up to where they should be? Considering that there are no really restrictions anymore, the door's wide open. Consumers have. There's probably a lot of pent-up demand, because they couldn't do a lot of stuff for a couple of years, and they saved a lot of money. So why isn't this translating into the pocket, into the wallet of a small business owner?
You're quite right. Many economists were predicting these boom times as we came out of the pandemic, because all of us that were locked in our basements and saving money as a result would come out of our basements and then just blow our brains out, spending and going to dinner every 2 nights and buying absolutely everything that we weren't able to buy in person for so long. Look, for some, it's because spending habits have changed. People have been spending their money differently than they did pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
But for others, there is still a pandemic legacy in the fact that, for the fact that we spent 2 years telling everybody that if you left your house, you might die. There are some consumers, and we all know a few, that aren't going out as often as they did pre-pandemic because they're still a little bit afraid of what's going on. Sure. Then, of course, there's the fact that consumers are having to spend a lot more of whatever money they may have set aside on just the basics, because inflation is taking a big bite out of household budgets. So that leftover money that they might have had for more discretionary purposes may not be there if you're spending a lot more on food and clothing for your kids to go to school. So that's taking a toll. Still, others see that the business is out there, but they can't achieve it because they don't have the people that they need to serve them. A lot of retailers are shortening their hours because they know they don't have enough staff to fill shifts in the evening or perhaps on a weekend. So there's a variety of reasons behind that, Mario, and all of them are worrisome.
So let's take a look at you mentioned the debt that they've incurred. How is it possible for these small mom and pop places, small business owners to get out of that debt?
Well, for one thing, we need to make sure that some portions of it are a little bit more patient than was the case. Remember, those CEBA loans, the Canada Emergency Business Account loans, they were supposed to have been fully repaid by the end of 2022, a couple months from now, in order for the business to maintain the forgivable component. Fortunately, the government did listen to us and has now extended that to the end of 2023. But we are calling on the feds to actually forgive a larger chunk of those loans. Right now, you can, if you have a $40,000 loan, you get $10,000 forgiven if you repay fully. And of the $60,000 variety loan, you get $20,000 you get to keep if you repay the balance of $40,000. We're saying that those loans should be 50% forgivable altogether. That would wipe off $10,000 from everyone's loan, providing a little bit closer line to recovery, at least on the debt side, for many of these businesses. The other thing we're asking governments to do is not make it worse by jacking up taxes like EI rates, CPP rates, carbon taxes, liquor taxes. That will allow business owners to hang on to a little bit more of their money, allow consumers to do the same. We feel like that would help considerably on the inflation front.
I wanted to ask you about labor. Now, we've talked about this before, and many have talked about the fact that it's tough to find people these days. Especially for when we look at the retail sector, as the retail sector, and restaurants included, all that, and food and beverage head into a very busy, traditionally busy time of the year, holiday shopping and holiday partying and all that type of stuff. Our business is going to be challenged in finding people to meet the demand that's going to be there.
They already are. Look, businesses, we've all seen it in our summer travels, that our favorite restaurant is, there may be 20 empty tables, but you're still waiting in line to get in because they just don't have the people that they need. This was an issue pre-pandemic too, but it has just grown exponentially. Some of it, of course, isn't pandemic related. Some of it is just demographics that are finally caught up with us. We've been predicting for decades that with the aging population in Canada, that at some point we're going to be in a big labor crunch. Well, it's here. And then, of course, the pandemic just turned the labor market on its ear. And for many people in hospitality and retail, they said, well, if I'm going to be locked down, reopen, I got to go find more stable work than this. That's government's fault, not the business owner's fault for creating that kind of herky-jerky labor market. It's going to take some time for that to balance out. Look, there are many predictions of an upcoming recession that will ease a little bit of the shortage of labor because, of course, businesses in some sectors would be forced to downsize, leaving some people open for jobs. But the long-term solutions are, we need to make sure that we're fully utilizing every resource we have in Canada, pulling in, ensuring that the disabled and Indigenous groups and new Canadians, seniors are fully employed in Canada. We also need to make sure that we are really focused on both a permanent immigration stream and the temporary foreign worker program to make sure that at least the temporary aspects of our labor market challenges can be addressed with some new bodies that come to Canada to take jobs. There's millions of people around the world that would love to come to Canada. Lots and lots of jobs open in Canada right now. We need to find a way to pair those people up with the jobs that are going begging, and to do that fast.
Now, over the last couple of years, one of the things that many retailers and business owners in general not complained about, but raised the alarm about, was some supply chain issues out there. What's the feeling these days from the small business community on where the supply chain is today compared to, say, where it was a year ago, 2 years ago?
I think it's eased a little bit. I think some of the transportation bottlenecks have eased to a degree, port-related issues. But I will say, there are still lockdowns happening in China, which is a huge source of consumer products in Canada. So supply chain issues are still very much a reality. Some of that was brought about by the pandemic, others just through natural reasons. But with the whole world experiencing a shortage of labor, that's not helping in terms of ensuring that there's a steady supply of goods. If you're trying to get a new car these days, good luck to you, because many dealerships just don't have what the consumers are looking for. And that has a toll, that takes its toll.
Yeah, exactly. So as we head into this, obviously it's going to, the busy shopping season for many retailers, small business owners. This is make or break time for them, right? This is when they get a lot of their revenues that carry them through the year, basically. What are you expecting out there from consumers as we head into this holiday shopping season?
Well, look, we're hoping that the resurgence of in-store sales continues. There has been some coming back as restrictions have eased, but a lot of consumers have gotten used to purchasing things online, and we expect a lot of that will continue. More small businesses, of course, have set up their own e-commerce sites and are doing that themselves, but for others, they're really struggling to compete with the Amazons and giant retailers of the world. So that is one phenomena that we're watching closely. We are, at least keeping a careful eye on whether or not restrictions will return if we do get into another wave of COVID in the fall. I'm not seeing any early signs from governments that we're moving in that direction, but that's something that we're getting a lot of questions from business owners as to the likelihood that further restrictions, capacity rules, etc., might come back in if we were to face another wave. So there's lots of worries on the part of small retailers right now as we approach the holiday season. But we are hoping for a much brighter year than we saw at year-end 2020 and 2021. I'm counting on consumers to go back to some of the small businesses in their communities that they loved pre-pandemic and support them as they purchase their holiday gifts.
All right, super. Well, thanks, Dan, for joining us today.
Anytime.
All right, super. That was Dan Kelly, who is President and CEO of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Senior News Editor with Retail Insider. Thanks for joining us today.